Hi everyone, Kay Berkner here today with Dr. Tom Phelan, author and creator of 123 Magic and the author of The Manager Mom Epidemic. Dr. Phelan, welcome.
Good morning, Kay. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. So today we are going to be talking about counting obnoxious behavior. And what that means in 123 Magic parlance is basically getting kids to stop doing what we call obnoxious behaviors. So, Dr. Phelan, you talk about counting as a signal that's sort of different than talking or nagging. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah. A lot of times, if we take whining as an example, you say to the child, stop whining. You do a command, or you do a nag, or something like that. And that may work some of the time, but at best, what it teaches the kids is simply to respond to a command. And so they have to do it. With counting, we want to put the responsibility on the children's shoulders for their own behavior. So counting as a signal means something. When I say that's one to you, and that's the signal, by prearrangement with you, we understand that that means to a child, I'm doing something wrong, I better figure out what it is, and I better stop it. That's why we call it stop behavior. So if I say that's one, the burden is placed on you to stop your behavior and to figure it out, rather than me to explain it or nag it away or anything like that. And that's the beginning of children's responsibility for themselves. And that's why a signal is better than a command.
And so I know that the 123 Magic program can be used as young as 2 years or even a little bit younger than that for a typically developing child. A question I can hear a parent asking is, can they really figure that out at that young of an age?
They will, if they're 2 or 18 months, it'll take them a little bit longer to figure it out, but it's kind of like almost like a stimulus response thing. You say that's one, they'll like, oh, something's going on here. And yes, they will figure it out, even though they couldn't explain to you necessarily what's happening. They will get the association, and that's very, very, very important. It's kind of like an if-then that they can't say as if-then, but they can experience it as an if-then, and it works.
Absolutely. So it's almost like starting to teach independence from a very early age.
It really is. And what will happen after a while is you think about it, say the child's whining, and you get that certain look on your face like you're thinking of counting. And the child will feel the count coming, but you don't say anything, and they stop themselves before you count. And that's what happens. So with the counting, very few times will they have to do, you have to do a consequence with them, because they will self-control without you having to say anything if you're doing it right. It's very gentle, very calm. That's the point of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talking about consequencing and not having to do it very often, I think you've said before, there's actually one exception to that, and that is when you first start using 123 Magic. Some kids, it will take them a little bit longer to sort of make the connection and figure out how the new order of things in the household is going to be. Can you give us a sense of sort of once you start implementing counting at home, about how long will it take before kids start really starting to respond on count 1 or count 2?
Yeah, my response to that will involve very discrepant answers. So believe it or not, there are some children that will respond within the first couple of hours. And so after 3 hours, you'll be doing the counting, they will respond to it. There's some kids that will take a day or two. And like I said, with the 18-month-old and the 2-year-olds and stuff, they may take, a week or 2 weeks for it to sink in. And there are some kids that'll do the reverse. They'll get worse first. And so you're going to get worse misbehavior because the kids aren't used to this and they don't like you being in control. Maybe they were running the house before or something like that. And some of these kids will put the parents through what we call hell week. And so we train the parents, okay, it may get worse before it gets better, and make sure you know exactly how you want to stay calm, you want to stay cool, you want to keep doing it, do it aggressively but gently, and so on. And usually the parents will weather the hell week and the kids will shape up.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. So talk to us about what sorts of behaviors counting should be used for.
Well, it's like you said before, it's obnoxious behavior. We call it stop behavior because you want the kids to stop it. And what do you want them to stop? Arguing, yelling, whining, fighting, screaming, teasing, sibling rivalry, and throwing the football in the house. Those are all negative behaviors that you don't want to occur. And they're different from positive behavior. And the reason we talk about this is because your behavior, your strategies for encouraging good behavior are different from your strategies from stopping the obnoxious stuff. So counting and signaling is good for stopping the obnoxious things.
Yes, and of course, in the book you talk about parenting job number 2, which is encouraging good behavior, and there's a whole set of strategies around that. So, what types of things does counting not work for, or should it not be used for?
Yeah, so you don't want to use it for the, the positive behaviors like homework. So you say to your kid, do you have any homework? And they don't say anything. You don't say that's one. Oh, I don't know why that's funny, but it is. What you want to do for the positive behaviors, you want to set up routines. So think obnoxious behavior, signaling, counting, positive behavior, set up routines. And that's what you want to do for things like homework, eating, and, getting up and out in the morning, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So one of the common questions that I've seen pop up in various places is, what about not listening? Right? Is this is not listening something that is a problem when it comes to start behavior, or is not listening or ignoring something that would be considered a stop behavior, or is it something else entirely?
No, it's both. In fact, not listening is sort of the umbrella term. Not listening can be a problem with obnoxious behavior. I'm asking you to stop whining, you're not listening. Or it could be you're not doing your homework. You're not listening when I tell you it's time to do your homework. So not listening covers both things, and it's not just one. So for some not listening, you're going to be using signaling, and for some not listening problems, you're going to be using routines. But it's a good question. But think of not listening as an umbrella. It includes both.
Okay, terrific. So can you tell us what some of the common challenges that parents have when it comes to counting?
I can tell you the absolute super biggest El Supremo challenge that parents have. There's kind of like one or two, but the biggest one really is not doing extra talking. So if you say the child's whining, you say that's one. You stop talking. You don't say anything else, as opposed to.
Oh, I think that Dr. Phelan has frozen there for a moment. I'm sure he will rejoin us shortly. We are just talking about kind of common challenges that people have with counting. So he's going to be talking about not talking. We're also going to talk about counting at bedtime and kind of how that works. There we go. Hi, Dr. Phelan, you're back. All right, so you were telling us that one of the most common challenges, the biggest challenge that parents have with counting, is remembering not to talk while they're doing the counting.
Yeah, I said this, but you don't say that's one. Come on now, look at me when I'm talking to you. I'm getting sick and tired of this, and go on and on and on. And along with that is the too much talking is the problem, and too much emotion. And you'll find as a parent, you know this very well. The more you talk, the more angry you get. If you're not getting the reaction that you want. So too much talking, too much emotion, definitely the biggest challenge. And there are a lot of people, a lot of us can talk and we don't even know we're talking. We can chatter, nag, jabber our heads off, and we're not really aware that we're talking. And that's the problem.
Got it. It's not intentional talking, really.
Automatic talking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the other common challenges when it comes to counting that we get a lot of questions about is essentially how counting interacts with some of those start behavior routines. If a child starts misbehaving during a routine that you've established. And the one that we most often get asked about is bedtime. So if you've established a good bedtime routine of, okay, bedtime's in 30 minutes, go ahead, go get your teeth brushed, get your pajamas on, and the child knows what the routine is, but they start misbehaving during bedtime. Do you use counting? How do you do a rest period during bedtime? Can you speak a little bit to how counting might interact with a start behavior routine like bedtime?
Yeah, bedtime is certainly a thing. It depends on if we're talking about before bedtime or at bedtime. So we'll do both. If usually with bedtime, we have a bedtime routine. The child's supposed to get ready independently, depending on their age. And then when they're ready for bed, they do story time with you. Say bedtime is 9 o'clock, so they're ready at 10 to 9. They sit down, do story time with you. 9 o'clock is bedtime, lights out. That's the end of it. If they're misbehaving during the bedtime routine, okay, you can still do a timeout, and they're going to lose that time out of the time they could possibly be getting ready. Now they could during the timeout be getting dressed or putting their pajamas on and that kind of thing too. So you could let them do that. That's not so bad. But they have less time to get ready. If the misbehavior occurs right at bedtime, okay, now we're at bedtime, they're already in the room, they're already in timeout. What are you going to do? It's bedtime, and that's it. So you're going to, just like you would, it's 9 o'clock, good night, honey, see you later, and that's the end of it. Now they may scream and yell or tantrum or whatever, and what do you do with that? You let them scream, yell, tantrum as much as they want. You're not going to go in the room and try and talk them out of it or anything like that. So think of it, if it's bedtime, they have less time to get ready if they're acting up. If it's happening right at 9 o'clock, or if they're not ready at 9 o'clock, we put kids to bed. They take their shoes off and crawl in bed, and that's the way it goes. They soon learn that they can't mess around too much with the bedtime routine.
Yeah, which is by the time you get to the end of that bedtime routine, everybody is just ready for bed. I know when I get to the end of my kids' bedtime routine, I'm ready to go to bed. So, and I know I just wanted to address one thing that we've gotten some comments on in the past. Dr. Phelan, when you talk about if the child decides to have a tantrum or scream or yell, or I don't start crying sometimes if I leave when they're trying to get me to come and spend just a little more time with them at bedtime, a number of parents have worried about what sort of emotional impact that might have on the child. So I think in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, you've suggested that if that's the case and you're worried about that, one of the things that you can do is essentially the cut them off at the pass routine that you would use for getting out of bed right after bedtime. Can you sort of confirm that I'm providing correct information here and explain what that looks like?
Yeah, the cut them off at the pass routine is for kids not staying in bed. But as you said, it could also be for kids that are upset. And many times the kids at bedtime are scared. So the two main reasons kids don't want to go to bed is boredom or fear of the boogeyman. There's a monster in the closet. Somebody's climbing up the outside of the house and all this. And you get a lot of that at ages 3, 4, 5, and so on. So what you do is you get a chair and you put it in the doorway with the back of the chair to the room. And you sit in there until they go to sleep. Now, this is absolutely no fun. But I did it with my son when he was 18 months of age and he climbed out of his crib for the first time. And you can get a good book and read it. You cannot do a cell phone or an iPad because the lights and sometimes the noise will distract the child. So you get a good book, so there's absolute silence, you read. And what that does, that reassures them and they go to sleep faster than they would if they were agitated or scared. So absolutely no fun, but it works. And gradually as the days go by, you can move the chair, a little bit further away each night, a couple inches there, and so on. And then you can, pretty soon you're not sitting in the chair.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Phelan. This has been really great. If you're interested in going deeper into the topic of counting to stop obnoxious behaviors, Dr. Phelan is doing a free seminar next week on September 9th. So you can go ahead and get registered for that. We will drop the link onto our Facebook page. And if you're not already signed up for our newsletter, you can head over to 123magic.com. We send out registration links for free seminars, parenting advice, and more. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.